Hi, I'm Sam Chilton and I'm running for VP support. It's an interesting question, essentially because I care. I'm dyslexic and dyspraxic. I first got contacted by ALS about 3.5 weeks ago. I'm a year and a half into my course, so after being told I'm possibly eligible for support a year and a half into my degree, that opened quite a few questions, and I've done a lot of digging since then and turned up a lot of things, a lot of criticisms that are not acceptable, and I want to change that, essentially. All right, so this is an interesting area. Last year, there was a lot of campaigning done by the support zone and by Koyen. So to innovate in the support zone, I'd actually want to go back more to the roots of when the support zone was first set up a few years ago in the 2024 review, which was not just about campaigning, it's actually helping to provide support and support for students, by students, as well as by the university. So I want to do more lobbying of the university for their services. I want to get more in contact with a broader range of services as opposed. You hear a lot about the Wellbeing Centre in ALS, which is great, but there are plenty of other services that provide useful resources, like USL and Student Services have some things. There's some stuff that the county provide. I want to get more of that involved and start really building on that to make support feel like a large network of help as opposed to just a few buzzwords that you hear every now and again in a campaign. There are certainly elements of being president of StagTV that helps with leadership, but I've got a lot of experience with mental health and disabilities in the past. I volunteer for a month every year with a special needs charity and disabled children and kids from disadvantaged backgrounds called Tallships Youth Trust. I've done a lot of things like student mentoring and peer mentoring in the past. So yes, stuff from StagTV will help, but I've got a lot more in the past to build on that I think is more useful. Yeah, absolutely, I really do. So Koyen last year did some great work with their campaigns, and I do want to build on that and expand that and push the boundaries, go for more breadth of topics in the campaigns, tackle some tougher areas, some things that you don't necessarily think of but are actually really relevant. So for example, a lot of students struggle when they move into private accommodation with new housemates that they have to live quite closely to, and there's not much awareness of those issues or what you can do about it. So I want to build on the campaigning, expand it, go to more areas and cover more topics. It's hard to isolate the biggest issue, but I think it's the overloading of services. So we've got more and more students joining every year. You've got services like ALS and the Wellbeing Centre, which I mentioned earlier. They just don't have the resource and the staff to cope with the amount of students that have issues at the university. And that ultimately probably comes down to funding and staffing. There's been a lot of staff changes and they need some time to settle in. But I want to try and put more pressure on the university to provide more funding for well-being and welfare, because funding hasn't gone up, but the amount of students have. It's quite tough to summarise my main manifesto points because I've broken support into 3 areas. So first there's awareness, then there's information, then there's action, and I've got multiple points within those. Across my various posts and stuff, I've got nearly 15 points, so my key ones. So firstly, campaigning in the awareness. I want to broaden the width of everything I do, tackle more areas like relationships, sex stuff, and some of the less usual stuff you don't hear about. So broaden the scope of awareness is one. Secondly, in information, I want to provide more sources of information for students. So when you have an issue, there's lots of information about where you can get help and what you can do about it, because there's not enough and it's not obvious enough as it is. And then thirdly, in the actual support itself, I want to put pressure on the university to provide better support services. I think that's the best summary I can give, but there's a lot of individual points within those of things that I would do. That's a great question. So how am I going to make the union more approachable, essentially? The interesting thing to add to that is, what is the union's role when it comes to support? Is it to be the first point of access, or is it to lobby other services to have better first ports of access? Because if you want the university support system to be really effective, that needs to be cleared up, because people go to all different sorts of different places. So when people come into the union, they can go and talk to the SAB team or the various staff members that can help. If you really want to make it feel approachable, firstly, there needs to be a load of campaigning. You need to make more open slots, so build on things like Happiness Cafe. I want to make some sessions, weekly drop-in sessions, to get people from various services like ALS and the Wellbeing Centre to come along and make them completely open, non-committal, completely anonymous, all of that kind of stuff. Hopefully, so people don't feel any pressure or feel any nervousness going along. But also, I don't want to do too much of that, because ultimately that's the university's responsibility, not the union. The union is to represent the students' needs, not to solve the students' needs, because that's just, the budget isn't there for that within the union. So I want to make the union more approachable, yes, but I want to make the university more approachable by pressuring them that that's something they need to understand.